Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1, and we're back. Happy New Year, everyone. We're going to pick up where we left off last week when we were talking about our 2021 predictions. And Julie and I are going to share with you just a couple little tidbits. Julie had, how many coaching calls do you have today? 9?
11.
11. Poor you.
Oh, it was great. It's good to be back. It was nice to hear the momentum. Everybody's just like absolutely ecstatic for this year.
Really?
Every single one of them. Now, I have 2 clients that have COVID, so they're not totally 100% right now.
They're just cheery.
Mentally, they're there. Just
Yeah.
physically and, health-wise, they're recovering. So, I mean, just absolute enthusiasm.
So do you remember, I know this is a big question, but where are all these clients located? There's no way you can remember all their states.
All over. I mean, if I think Northern Georgia is one. We've got Northern Virginia, 2 calls in California, Colorado, mountains of Tennessee. I've one in Michigan. Everywhere. It's crazy.
And everyone's feeling that there's a
lots
huge
of enthusiasm.
Yeah, and enthusiasm, but it's not just enthusiasm. It's enthusiasm that's essentially being fueled by actual buyer demand.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and so the normal market that people really anticipate happening in, say, early spring,
Oh, it's here.
It's here. And it's exactly what we've been warning about since last year, that there would be no reprieve entering into this year.
No
the market.
reprieve.
Now, if you guys...
I heard slow down words from no one.
Exactly. Well, you can see it happening. I mean, really, all you've got to do is just talk to people, just rub elbows with people. Everyone's real estate, curious and essentially reeling, in our industry at least, from being incredibly busy for the last 6 months. Well, I got news for you guys. You're going to be incredibly busy this year as well. It's just really critically important that you drill down and focus on the things that are going to put you in a position to help as many people as you can and make money. Otherwise, you're going to have months and years just get by you. And we do believe, and we're going to get back to it with our 2021 predictions, we do believe that 2021, and for all the reasons we're about to discuss with you, is going to be the start of at least a 5-year boom market, but not just like a boom market in the sense of a seller's market, but an overall economic boom, and really where housing is going to be one of the greatest beneficiaries of that. So you are in the right place at the right time. If you've ever been curious what that feels like, it feels exactly like you feel now.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
what it feels like.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the other thing I heard today was a lot of people really enjoying Expired Palooza beginning of the year. The highest I heard was 800 expireds, but I think that was statewide in that case. Most of the time it was like 50 to 150 expireds, which is plenty. I mean, here's the thing. How many of those do you need to work out to be happy?
Yeah.
You need to achieve your magic number. And that's it. You don't have to talk to all 800 of them. And when you have that many, you can cherry pick too.
And we're not going to talk about expireds today, but we do obviously offer very in-depth training on how to go after expireds, be a proactive lead generator. That's part of our coaching program. So if you're looking for absolute proven direction in your real estate practice this year, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the business, you definitely want to consider becoming one of our coaching clients. Let's not just be, let's just be real direct about that. This is the perfect time of year for you to join, so you do not waste any time with a bunch of false starts. And that's what the industry is full of. I'm going to say this again, and I don't think I can say it any clearer. This is going to be your year if you take action now. And you've got to take action doing the things you don't want to do when you don't want to do them at the highest level, which is primarily going to be proactive lead generation. Julie obviously mentioned expireds, and we've been hoping all of you would pay attention to the expireds in your marketplace. We started asking you to prepare yourself for this week since last year, and you are going to you literally could build enough of a listing inventory just hunting expireds for maybe the next 2 weeks to take care of yourself for the entire year. But are you doing it? Or are you just rationalizing why you're not doing it? Are you getting ready to get started? Or are you just going to procrastinate even longer, saying you have to get something done or learn something or whatever? Learn on the job, move forward, earn while you learn. These are all the things that we get you to do in our coaching program. So if you want to discuss becoming a member of our coaching program, the easiest way for you to do that is actually get the real estate treasure map, and we'll call you and you can speak directly to one of our coaches. And all you've got to do is text the word, I haven't said this in 2 weeks, so I got to remember. Text 2021 text 2021 to 855-685-1045. So text 2021 to 855-685-1045. Or frankly, you can just go to our main website, timandjulieharris.com, and click on coaching programs. And the program that you're probably going to want to be interested in most is going to be called Premier Coaching. So go ahead and join Premier Coaching. It's very simple for you to do it. Those are the 2 action steps you should take. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw another one out there. If you want me to get you the head of the line for joining Premier Coaching, just text me directly, and I'll put you directly in front of our new member coaches. And my cell phone number, and this is really my cell phone number, is 512-758-0206. This year, unlike any other year that Julie and I have been in the real estate business, it's incredibly important that you're urgent with your activities now, because sellers are not going to be waiting to put their houses in the market because they're experiencing a real good case of, FOMO, fear of missing out. They don't want to wait until the spring to put their houses on the market because they know this market right now, their perception is that it's incredibly hot, which of course it is, and there's no guarantee what the spring market's going to hold for their house values. So they're putting their houses for sale now. So if you are just thinking that you're going to have a little crop of listings pop up, and even buyers for that matter, come springtime because you haven't all the years past, that market is now. Okay, you're not going to be able to wait 2 or 3 months to really drill down on your real estate business and really dig in and start being serious again. Your vacation is over, folks. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
Done.
Take this serious, because this is really going to be the start of what could be a series of amazing years for yourself. Think big, act even bigger. All right, anything else you want to say from your calls today?
Well, I mean, to your point, here's the thing. I think that everything you just said, absolutely true. Also, it's going to be more competitive.
Right.
Okay. Especially on the listing side, you have to have your act together on that, because, it used to be, if you weren't a listing agent, you could kind of survive on buyers, but now everybody has tons of buyers. And even if they are, highly motivated and highly qualified, that alone does not mean that they're going to win. Okay.
Right.
So if you've been surviving just on buyers, that's going to get harder, not easier.
Well, that's one of our upcoming predictions, by the way. So we're just going to get back to these because Julie and I
step on the points.
We're going to step on our points. We always do that. So here's your homework for today's podcast. Just text 2021 to 855-685-1045. Oh, and one of you guys did take the time to go through the real estate treasure map, and you found it was like maybe 20 different little edits that needed to be done. I don't remember the client that did that, but I sincerely appreciate it. We're having one of our staff reporters go through that and completely use all your edits and do some other changes to the real estate treasure map. So just FYI, we really always sincerely appreciate your contribution to making everything we do better. And that includes show ideas and topics. So if you ever have an idea that you want us to talk about, like I had one this morning, Julie. Mm-hmm. I'll share this one with you, then we'll get to our next point. And I think this is a really good idea. We've been married for 30 years this year. How about that?
Yes.
Okay. And we've always worked together. We've always
true.
been
Even before we were married.
But we've owned a series of businesses. Mm-hmm. And we need to do a podcast and that was talking about like how we did it and how we continue to do it. Because I think people are innately curious. And there's a lot of people that just think about some of the conversations we had over the holidays, hanging out with new friends and old friends and talking with people. And it was like half of them were having little conflicts with their spouses. Now, holiday stress gets the best of a lot of people. True. And so you kind of discount it. A lot of people were experiencing just the familial stress of trying to fit in a bunch of,
and holiday after holiday.
Yeah, so that's the thing. But we need to do a podcast on that because some of the things that we were sharing with, I had a couple of people actually pulled me aside and asked me specific questions about, basically our marriage and, things that they're wanting to work on with their wives, and they didn't know how to go about having those conversations.
That sounds like a pretty good podcast or series of podcasts to me.
Right. And I think we should. And I think that would be a very beneficial idea. Now, so that's an idea I had, but a lot of the other podcasts, like we did a podcast the other day on why we moved to Puerto Rico. That was an idea from a listener. So any suggestions you guys have for us, please let us know. We're also going to be expanding this podcast. We're making it into more of a channel. We're going to be having actually other people doing podcasts on this podcast. And they're all people that are associated with us, work for us, that kind of thing. One is going to be strictly on marketing. There's going to be another podcast we're going to do in Spanish. There's another podcast we're probably going to do about, essentially business building by Sean Kokoska. So we're going to be creating more content for you guys and more diverse subjects. And then, of course, Julie and I will continue to do our podcast every single day. So we are incredibly excited about expanding everything we offer to you guys because we want to make sure you're way ahead of the curve for what comes next, but at the same time taking full advantage of what is now. All right, so point number 5. Now, if you want to listen to our previous points, obviously, you can go to everywhere to listen to our past podcasts. You can go to, of course, timandjulieharris.com's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. All right, so point number 5, and this is part 2 of this podcast series on our predictions. So what I'm saying is go back and listen to the other one if you want to listen to the other 4 points. Point number 5, return of the art of having real conversations. All this high-speed connectivity will result in people wanting to have real-life, face-to-face, albeit in video, conversations. Apple Glass, 5G will give agents who know how to truly communicate an unfair advantage. Now, you and I have talked about that a lot because I'm trying to decipher how significant Apple Glass in particular will be to society, right? Let alone our industry. And I think that I can't even think big enough to fully comprehend the ramifications of what Apple Glass will do to just the humans in general.
Sure.
I really don't think I completely comprehend the potential of that product.
I don't think anybody will until we all are connected that way.
Right.
And that we're seeing that. I mean, we got Zoe an Oculus for Christmas, and just that experience alone, and that's, probably the tip of the iceberg, is pretty amazing. I mean, how far that technology has come since we started studying it is mind-boggling. And I think that the collective adaptation of that is just going to be amazing. So I think you're right. It's one of those circumstances where you don't really know until it's out there.
And what Apple Glass is, you guys just Google it. But the long story short, it's essentially what's going to look like a designer glasses. And there's different.
Not weird looking.
Not weird looking. Not like the Google Glass that Google came out with. But these Apple Glasses are going to take all the function of your iPhone. And iWatch for that matter, and they're going to put it on the screen of, essentially I call it screen, but the lenses of your glasses. Now, these glasses can be prescription if you'd like. These aren't ugly looking frames. Like I said, they're going to be very good looking. Sunglasses, the whole thing. And you're going to essentially have this immersive experience where you're fully connected to other people, obviously, who also have Apple Glass. That's going to allow you to have conversations. And essentially, you guys have realized, and I'm sure you've seen this, most people, they look on their phones anymore, so they're having video calls while they're walking around. So that's become a thing. I'm sure you've all seen that. So it's not just walking around with earbuds now. You're walking around with earbuds looking at your screen. And so obviously people's desire to have face-to-face contact with somebody they're talking with, that is going to be essentially fulfilled with Apple Glass. That's their prediction. But you're saying, okay, Tim, that all makes sense, but how am I going to use it? You can start with the obvious things, the virtual tours. But it even gets more enhanced than that. Think about this. Why not have a coaching call with one of our coaches where you're essentially looking, your whole experience is basically Apple Glass. They're looking through, the whole experience is almost as close to as being face-to-face, one-on-one as you possibly can get, assuming that both of you are using shared technology. The problem, the Achilles heel in all this has always been connectivity, right? Broadband speed and all 5G speed. Well, all that's getting fixed. You're having satellites being launched. You're having 5G. There's T-Mobile Home that's coming out, which is going to make it so that people are no longer going to be tied to cable internet access. Everyone on the planet Earth is going to be able to have incredibly fast digital conversations with people, which leads to the point I wrote down. For people that have never learned how to actually converse in a professional sales environment, knowing what to say and having scripts to say, they're going to be screwed because that's what the consumers are going to expect. When you get a lead call from somebody, it's not just going to be an email like some of you guys are so used to, or some email from some lead service you're buying your leads from. It's going to be somebody who's directly connecting with you, who expects to see you, who expects to have a conversation with you, who's going to then expect you to know what to say and how to say it to solve their problem with just buying or selling real estate. So the people who know how to actually communicate at a high level and frankly sell, right? They're the ones that are going to have an unfair advantage. And you're going to see this, guys. Watch as these Apple Glasses, and supposedly Apple Glass is getting announced in the first half of 2021. It's all a rumor, but supposedly that's what's going to happen. You watch who adapts that first. What industries? You watch to see how companies start adapting that technology and how everything is going to move essentially to your glasses. And that's my prediction. Away from your desktop even. I can talk forever about it because I've been researching it. And I think it's incredible. And like I said, I can't comprehend all the ways that could potentially change society. But I think the answer is every way.
Every way.
It is.
And it probably over several years, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. What wouldn't change because of that, if you think about it?
Nothing. It's going to touch everything. It's communication. Communication is like, I think of it as spider legs that get into everything.
Yep.
It's all connected. So, it'll be pretty interesting.
It's like cell phones, right?
Yeah.
I remember when cell phones came out, and I don't want to, it's no sense talking about how
back in our day.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was trying to avoid. But back in our day, in the 80s, when the things were like bricks, and then they got smaller and smaller. And then all of a sudden people, companies start coming out with these smartphones. There's the flip phone and all these other things where you could do 2 or 3 things. And then, Apple came out with the iPhone and everything changed.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you can see how this Apple Glass is going to have, if you can essentially have this immersive technology that's going to be making it so that you walk down the street and it's going to have LiDAR. The glasses have LiDAR in the front. So in other words, you're going to be able to do hand gestures out in front of you where you're essentially pointing at things that are only appearing on your screen like they do on Oculus, like they do in some of these other...
People might end up looking crazy for a while.
Crazier.
But we'll all get used to it.
People will look crazier.
Crazier.
Well, but think about it. How long did it take
right.
for you to get used to seeing people walk down the street and talk to themselves and
I
realize
know.
they're wearing earbuds?
Exactly. Or at least
funny.
we think they're wearing earbuds.
All right, so this next one I actually got from John Malden.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, then this was a bunch of just points that I just dropped into this point. I won't force you to read this because you'll drive you crazy. I'll go through it, okay?
Sure.
Point number 6, artificial intelligence will be here as promised, but actually working because of quantum computing. All right, now so I'm going to read these things to you guys, and it's okay if you don't understand it. Frankly, I didn't understand it until I researched it because, again, we're trying to pay attention to what's going to have a true effect on not just your business, but everything in life. So here's some interesting data for you. We produce 2.5 exabytes of data every day. That's equivalent to 250,000 Libraries of Congress of content or 5 million laptops every minute of every day. 3.2 billion global internet users continue to feed the data banks with 9,722 pins on Pinterest, 347,222 tweets. Ugh. Anyway,
I could barely say that.
4.2 million Facebook likes plus all the other data we create by taking pictures and videos, saving documents, opening accounts, and more. We're at the limits of the data processing power in the traditional computers, and the data just keep growing. While Moore's law, which predicts the number of transistors on an integrated circuits will double every 2 years, proved remarkably resilient since the term was coined in 1965. Those transistors are now as small as we can make them with existing technology. And this is kind of an interesting, I didn't put it in here. Mm-hmm. The reason they can't make them smaller is because basically they heat up too much and they can't actually figure out a way to make the chips not essentially burn themselves out.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a limit to, and we're basically at that technology. So there needs to be something that's going to replace a conventional computer chip. Mm-hmm. That's why, and that's also why, did you know this? That's the reason, like when we lived in Austin, do you remember they were building that big Apple building or Google building or whatever it was? Mm-hmm. And like it was so far down, like a huge like cool, 5-story crane was in the thing and digging. And it's because they're putting it subterranean to basically keep the computers cool. Yeah. That's why there's a race from the biggest leaders in the industry to be the first to launch a viable quantum computer that would exponentially more powerfully than today's computers to process the data we generate every single day and solve increasingly complex problems. It's quite possible that these quantum computers will be able to complete calculations within seconds and would take today's computers thousands of years to calculate. Today, Google has a quantum computer they claim is 100 million times faster than any of today's systems. What? That will be critical if we're going to be able to process monumental amounts of data we generate and solve some very complex problems. So the point of it is artificial intelligence. We've all had experiences with it. It's, artificial intelligence is like when you're checking out on Amazon even, and it sees what you're checking out, and it's thought, well, you might like this or you might like that. There were some artificial intelligence assistants. We tested some of them in our business, and they never quite worked right. But just different forms of artificial intelligence that have emerged. But what artificial intelligence, backed by broadband connectivity, backed by people's desire and need and absolute thirst for having things faster, you're going to see, and this is the reason I read all this to you guys, is I think in the next 3 years, we're going to see an absolute, complete replacement of all the expectations that consumers have for receiving any product and service. Because it's going to be a combination of essentially, for example, Apple Glass, combined with artificial intelligence that's backed by these new, not even supercomputers. So when that happens, everything's going to change. All the experiences that we expect, And when you're doing business with somebody, if they're not operating on that level and their competitor is, you just will pass them up like people used to blow past Blockbuster stores on the way home to watch Netflix.
I'm just making my mental list of companies that I would like to be early adopters of some of this because...
Are they all in Puerto Rico?
Well, a lot of them
Utility
are.
companies?
I'm just thinking like, boy, that would have been a different experience, right? And that's what I was saying is I think it's going to take some time for this to actually become mainstream. But yeah, boy, there's certain areas where we really, really need this.
Let me edit what you just said because I think it's important. Time for it to become mainstream. So what you're saying, and when you're thinking about, okay, this is going to be something new we all have to learn to adapt to.
Yes, but I'm also thinking about, how different experiences are. Let's take like setting up utilities, for example. Right. When I call, say, Murphy, North Carolina.
Everybody knows what that's like.
Everything is like
slow.
6 steps, a whole bunch of phone calls and follow up. And, you can't do it online. You had to send in paperwork.
Here's the definition. Here's the difference with quantum computing.
Yeah.
So right now, for you to try to integrate, so just playing with Zoe's Oculus or whatever.
Sure.
You've got to learn that. You've got you have to learn a new operating system in essence. You have to learn the rules of the operating system. And what you're going to see is it's like, do you remember when we were living in Texas, right? And you and I go on those drives in the country and we come across those, those old towns that were railroad towns that were completely looked like something out of an Old West movie, right? And there were a lot of them.
Yeah, tons.
The further we got away from Austin, you'd come across one after another. And they were beautiful in their own way, but they were also really sad and kind of creepy.
That's true.
Okay, so those to draw a parallel, those are the modern businesses that don't adapt
totally agree.
They don't adapt fast enough.
Sure.
What's going to happen is the railroad's going to pass them by and they're just going to become basically a relic of the past.
Well, I think you're right. It'll be a great sorting out.
Really
will. I think that'll affect agents too.
Right.
You either change or you fizzle out. You're going to have to be with it.
It's going to be a very powerful way for a business to differentiate themselves in the marketplace because they're going to be early adopters and meeting the customer where the customer is or where the customer is going to be in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and they're going to have to do it.
Right. And you combine this with the point we'd made on the previous show with the massive change in how people are going to live because of COVID and because people moving out of the cities, the great migration trends away from the cities, those are just picking up momentum. I've read a whole bunch of articles, and you sent me some articles on how the flyover states no more, basically.
Yeah, crazy.
The greatest appreciation is happening in the states that were considered flyover states by snarky coasters mostly. But even in our old town of Columbus, Ohio, appreciation last year was at 10%.
Oh, it's like 15 or something.
It's crazy.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was asking coaching clients today because in the past probably 30 to 60 days, I think there's been so many like record closings in record time. And we were talking about this with relating it to older expireds, right? Because you might actually get them their old price and the different types of conversations you can have with that. So, yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of new comps, especially in places that you wouldn't expect it.
Well, look, you sent me an article from the Columbus Dispatch, for example, that showed me, or that showed the $1 million and multi-million-dollar properties that had just been sitting in Columbus, Ohio, are now like the hottest thing.
I know. I was joking with a coaching client that, when we would take something like that, it's like, hey, we got this listing that's fantastic, it's all high-end luxury, and then you'd be like, oh crap, now we got to sell it.
Yeah, and it's years.
And it would be years. There were, average days on the market for some of this, that was like 1,000 or something.
More than that. There are properties that were, like where we sold real estate in New Albany, Ohio, there were properties, and we pick up these expireds too.
Well, and not just first time expired. Sometimes it was like the fourth expired.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We're picking them up, it's like,
it's
not
crazy.
Exciting. And, so that's all changed now. And where are those buyers coming from? The coasts.
Yes, the coasts.
The coasts. People are moving out of New York and they're moving out of, California. I had tons of conversations with people actually here in Puerto Rico where we live that are moving out of California.
And a lot of New York and New Jersey too.
Yep. So that trend is just going to pick up.
Now I have to say I do feel a little bit vindicated as a flyover state Midwesterner that finally our time has come, but not for, the ideal reason. Who would have ever predicted anything like that? It's interesting to see the mindset of agents that have sold like we did, where it's like, oh, this is never going to be a hot market. And then they're like, holy cow, I've got 10 offers. What is going on?
But the funny thing is those agents that know how to sell in a buyer's market.
Oh, yeah. Look out, man.
Look out. You do not want to compete with agents that actually know how to get price changes, know how to basically really have sales skills. Because in a hot seller's market, the houses more or less sell themselves. You don't need that really great skill set. Right. But in a buyer's market, you do. In Columbus, Ohio, for example, example, it's been in a buyer's market forever. And now for the last, maybe 3 years? And now it's creeped up to the upper end stuff. Well, that's happening all over the country.
It's amazing.
All right, so next point that we wrote down.
This is an easy one, a short one. Point number 6.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
COVID will be over. A vaccine is here. Herd immunity, they're saying by late 2021. Different people say different things, but COVID is going to come to an end.
Now, we're just going to let that hang there for a second because the next point is going to be the one that I know my lovely wife is going to want to read to you. Point number 7, esposa.
Yes, gracias. As a result, there will be the start of a cultural and, more importantly, real estate renaissance. Real estate renaissance will appear in the form of new kinds of real estate, reuse of previous obsolete real estate, new construction methods, new attitudes about lifestyle, old towns finding new life again, forgotten about desert scapes will have new towns formed. People may choose to have smaller homes in different places of the world, or they'll want larger homes in the country. I call it like the great shakeup, but I like real estate renaissance better because everything is changing. I think it's really exciting, interesting times to live in.
This is the most exciting time that you and I have been in the real estate industry for basically 25 years.
Yeah.
This is the most exciting time ever.
I agree. It's very interesting.
It's so much fun to see all the creativity and all the energy and enthusiasm. And it's really a lot of it's coming from that point that you just read, but also from this whole new generation of people, millennials and maybe even some Generation Z that are getting into real estate, and seeing them come into the market with a lot of energy and enthusiasm and creativity and, wanting to learn basically all the things necessary to be successful. And I'll tell you something else that's fascinating from a coach's perspective, dealing with those guys. They are the least prone to buy up the gimmicks that people our age seem to suck up.
That's right. It's counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive.
That they're more resistive to that.
Yeah, they're the ones that are most likely to want to have real skills because they realize that a lot of the social networking stuff is what it is, which is mostly basically just mental masturbation, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of there. And it's good for, whatever it's good for. But as far as actually putting yourself in a position to help people and make money for yourself, there's nothing better than proactive lead generation. And the millennials that I see showing up on our radar as new coaching students, those are the ones I think it's never been like that before. You and I have always been contrarians to what you're supposed to be doing in the business because we tell the truth and everybody else tells people what they want to hear.
That's true.
That's the thing that's made us different. And we tell them what they want to hear when they don't want to hear it, and we tell them as loud as at the highest level, right?
Absolutely.
And that means doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. And millennials, when they hear that message and then they go and they compare it to other things they're being told they need to do to build their businesses, they know because they grew up with all the social networking stuff what the truth is. And so that's where I'm really excited to see so many people in real estate that are going to enter into real estate with their heads screwed on straight about learning how to do real work.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, look at our coaching clients. Look at the people you talked to today.
I know. Absolutely.
How many of them rolled farts like us?
Not that many.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd say maybe 30% of them.
Yeah.
They're around. Okay, so point number 8, more technological advances happening faster because of COVID. COVID is the 4-minute mile for the medical industry. Now that the vaccine was created in less than a year, won't that change the expectation for scientists, consumers, the pharma industry? Add to this the advancements in AI, and there could be a massive surge in medical technologies, cures to diseases that were assumed to be incurable. Where will these companies be based? Okay, real estate in those areas will, of course, go nuts.
And I think that point that I wrote down, that is something that's really pulling a lot of the previous points together, but it's fascinating. Because now that we've had this COVID vaccine, do you remember when COVID hit in the spring of last year? And everyone's like, oh, this is going to be with us for 5 years. The average vaccine takes 5 years. And then boom, it's done in a year.
It really is a medical miracle.
It is a medical miracle.
It is.
But isn't everyone's expectations for how long we should expect for the pharmaceutical industry and the scientists to come up with cures for things? Do you think we've been setting the bar too low as a society? Apparently, right?
Well, I think, I had this in one of our other podcasts. I think the last fastest one took like 7 years or something like that.
So what happened?
Yeah.
The government, Trump administration.
Private and public went together.
And then Trump basically, the idea was, we're going to do essentially what's never been done before. We're going to come up with a vaccine in 12 months. We're going to give you guys all kinds of financial incentives to basically point all your best energies towards coming up with a vaccine. And there was basically a race to come up with a vaccine. And the government locked in a contract for how many they were going to purchase. And so these companies had all the financial incentive for it. Okay, now what if they were to come up, what if that same thing were to start happening? What if every year there was a new disease that they were going to cure?
Yeah.
Seriously.
And now we know we can.
Right. And now these, the
precedent.
government red tape's been set aside. There's a financial incentive that's there. There's obviously a lot of, that's exciting,
sure,
right?
Absolutely.
I mean, everyone could say, okay, well, this next year it looks like we're going to cure, whatever the disease is.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And I think some of that was probably the enormous amount of people affected in the enthusiasm and the push for it, because it wasn't just, whatever percent of the population is affected by this thing. It was basically everyone's mutual fear fueling it.
Oh, yeah. But add to this, Julie. Add to the fact that Google has a quantum computer that they claim is 100 million times faster than any of today's systems.
Well, get that thing thinking about stuff.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Right?
So what if all of a sudden there's all these quantum computers that are
I think
operating?
it's part of the new renaissance.
Isn't that amazing?
I do.
Don't you feel it?
Yeah.
Do you feel it, listeners? We do.
I know they do, man. It's crazy today. Okay.
Well, you had all those calls and you're still excited and motivated.
I am.
That says it all.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this next point, we should level off after this one. This is
Yeah.
a really big point. And I think it's probably one of the most significant points of any of the points that I wrote down for all of you guys. But this one is the game changer for your real estate business for at least the next 5 years and maybe even beyond that.
Yes.
Mrs.
Okay. So
Harris?
point number 8, I believe. Inflation will be a clear and present danger. It's here already. There will be no depreciation. Inflation is obvious in the cost of homes, cars, you name it. When inflation hits commodity prices like food, things will get scary. Prices will increase before wages do. Real estate prices in some markets over the next 1 to 3 years will easily double. We're already seeing that. I can name probably 5 different markets and 20 to 30 examples just from coaching clients. It's not like we know every single licensed person on the planet, just from our coaching clients, where there are examples of already doubling in the past, like where we live, in the past year in some cases. Other places, it's been, I would say, in the past 2 to 3 years, they've been getting double.
We have our cabin in the mountains in Murphy, North Carolina.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, that market's basically doubled.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that, again, where are the people moving from? Guess where? All the coasts, and they're going to live in Murphy in a beautiful cabin in Appalachia, in the Smoky Mountains, and they can get online and have connectivity just like if they're sitting downtown Manhattan. They're getting the heck out of Manhattan. That trend is just getting started. And so, you combine all these things that are happening at the same time, and that's going to cause, along with really, really cheap interest rates, you can get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on a conforming loan for less than 3%. Now, Julie and I, and you could read all of our books, we've always been advocates of paying all your stuff off, right? No debt usually wins. Well, you know what? I'm not so sure that's true now, because if you can buy a house, and I want you guys to think about this. If you can buy a house, and that house is going to inflate, or maybe you want to call it appreciate in value, by more than the cost to own that house, including the interest, including even the maintenance and the upkeep, you live for free. And that's a situation a lot of you guys are going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. You're about to say something?
Yes. Well, here's something interesting. One of our coaching clients in Virginia is working with a company that will basically do an old-fashioned bridge loan type of thing, which will make you not contingent. You can buy what you want. They loan your equity back to you at 2.5%. But here's the catch. You don't have to lock into selling that company. This is a group of investors at today's price. You can borrow your equity for up to 12 months. You can fix your house up. You can move. You can use it as a down payment. And then by the time you make it to the end, you've made enough on your house that 2.5% didn't matter at all to you, nor did the payment.
It was free money.
It's free money. It's an amazing program. So I think you're going to see, related to our points, and I'm not sure we have this point, I think you're going to see some innovative financing too.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't. But we should.
And so here's the caveat to that. They only do it if you have 50% equity. So in normal times, we'd be like, who's got 50% equity? But tons of people have 50% equity. So I think you're going to see some kind of like hybrid loans and some different things. I've already seen more people go ahead and buy before they sell because they figure the money's cheap and they know their old house is going to sell.
It's important that I point this out so you guys aren't confused. So inflation basically is when the cost to buy things increases, right? And so inflation initially, when there's always inflation in the economy, and depending if you believe it or not, it's usually around 3% per year. But what happens is essentially if you can, like inflation of 3% per year, if you can increase your wages or your salary or your income by 3% per year, even if everything else you're dealing with, costs of consumer goods goes up by 3% per year, you don't really feel it. But when you start to see aberrations, and you start seeing this in real estate, you start seeing in a lot of other things, where the cost of that thing has increased essentially exponentially. It's increased faster than the normal rate at which it would increase. We'll talk about real estate because that's what we're good at. That's what you guys are in the industry of, so you can understand that, right? What's causing that? It's caused by demand. Primarily, that's what it's caused by. People say the market, for the next 3 to 5 years is caused by low interest rates. No, it's caused by demand. Now, would there be less demand if there were lower interest rates? Probably, but it's demand primarily driven by a change in demographics, driven primarily by a change in where people want to live. This great migration trend is just starting. And then you add low interest rates and you've got something we've never experienced before. It's probably never been experienced at this level before in the history of humanity. So you have to understand that, again, you are in the right place at the right time. And by the way, you're selling the right product. You're selling something that everybody needs. So make the most of this year especially. Please do not wait to get started. Do not be complacent. Do not be lazy. Do not wait for anything to happen. Do not wait at all. Urgently text 2021 to 855-685-1045. And when you do, we're going to text you back a link and download the Real Estate Treasure Map. That's your fill-in-the-blank business plan. Also your 12-month lead generation plan. Also, we're giving you a copy of Think and Grow Rich for Real Estate. All of those books are there, along with, I think there's 4 others that are there as well. And you can download all of those. All you've got to do is text 2021 to 855-685-1045. So where inflation turns ugly is when, frankly, you're in, let's say, for example, you're a firefighter or you're any kind of profession, and the cost of all your things, are food especially. So initially your house goes up, you're like, holy tamale, Bob, do you see how much our house is worth? And then maybe your truck or whatever, it doesn't depreciate. Maybe the truck keeps its value. Maybe you start seeing other things you have, like your baseball cards or just miscellaneous things. They start increasing in value. It makes you feel rich. Until you then have to start paying or seeing the inflation in everything, not just your assets, but essentially in your consumables.
Well, let's say you go to the grocery store,
right?
And you're like, "Holy cow! When did milk become $7 a gallon?"
Then $17 a gallon.
Yeah, that's now, and because that's not it's one thing to have equity in your home, right? It's sitting there, but that's not
makes you feel good.
Makes you feel good. It's another thing when you go to check out and you're like, "Why is my grocery bill this much?"
Right, and so that's the reason that stock market is going to go bat. I can't even say the word because I'll owe Zoe $1, but I can spell it. No, she can spell now, so she'll know.
You're in trouble, man.
Yeah, so you guys know what I was about to say. The stock market this year is going to go crazy. Then essentially holding assets is going to be essentially like holding a winning Willy Wonka ticket. And all of this is great, and all of this is going to cause people to want to buy real estate. All of this is going to trigger more, fear of missing out. All of this is going to essentially compound, make people very excited, okay? Until inflation gets to the point where it creeps into the, essentially commodity prices, and people's wages haven't kept up with the cost of things. When you have that happen, and that always happens in a cycle like this, there's many examples of cycles like this, wherever there's a fiat currency and the government, or not the government, but the Fed produces too much currency, you have an overabundance of currency, inflates value because more people have the ability to spend, creates a rise in the cost of things. When that's in Mr. Firefighter, if all of a sudden he's making $75,000 a year, and that makes it so that he can live comfortably with his family, but all of a sudden that $75,000 now doesn't have the same buying power, and it gets even worse and worse every single month, that's when you see those historical pictures of people pushing around wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread. Now, will it get that bad like it did in the, what was it called, the Vladimir Republic, or the what was it in Germany? It wasn't Vlad, it was something else. Weimar. You got it. Smart wife. Yeah, that's right. I
don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I know, right? Pull that out.
Kind of funny when that hits me. Yeah. That's so funny. Okay.
Anyway, so yes, that's when you start seeing images like that. Guys, look, we're not smart enough to be able to predict whether something like that's going to happen. That's called hyperinflation. I've not heard anybody give a real good argument to believe that's going to happen, but it certainly could. But what we are experiencing, not will experience, what we are experiencing, and Julie and I have been telling you guys this for 2 years, is we're experiencing inflation. And it's going to feel good for a while, so enjoy it while it feels good. There will be a price to pay. So in the interim, do yourself a favor. Lock in a long-term 30-year rate mortgage. Make as much money you can, help as many people as you can, and position yourself that if indeed there's some sort of downward, if there's a hyperinflationary cycle, again, no guarantee that's going to happen, but if there were to be, that you're financially prepared. And the way you be financially prepared is just essentially stay drilled down.
Make hay while the sun shines, man.
There's pure evidence we're from the Midwest.
Well, I'm just saying, if there's a wave, you've got to ride that, because if and when things change, and I think the Fed's got a lot more tools than they used to, or at least they're more willing to use them to sort of monitor some of this stuff and try and control it.
I don't. You're optimistic.
I don't know. But meanwhile,
They're
while
just throwing
things
money.
are, well,
Yeah.
but, you know, take what the market's willing to give you. And
Right.
here's the thing. There's so much opportunity right now. But I do worry about the agents who have not yet become listing agents.
Definitely.
Because here's the thing.
We're getting to it. Don't step on a point.
Well, we can do that point tomorrow because we need to wrap up.
It's actually point number 12.
But here's the thing. You used to be able to just survive on buyers and you'd be fine.
Right.
You know, I'll just work buyers for a while. It's all right. Or maybe I don't even need to learn to be a listing agent. But now when things are competitive and there's not enough to go around, there's no guarantee even your best, most motivated, most qualified buyer is going to be the one that wins. And those are the agents that I worry about the most that are not embracing being a listing agent. I also worry about listing agents that have kind of been riding on things being kind of easy and coming
Center
to
of
them for a
influence,
while.
past client types.
Yeah, and they think, I've got the relationship. You know, I
Right.
talk to some people. It's good because it is more competitive.
Well, it's not just competitive with other agents. It's competitive with technology companies.
And it's competitive with the sellers themselves
Right.
because when you have low inventory, a for sale by owner can actually be successful.
Well, that's
so,
true.
You know, you've got to talk to them and put yourself in that transaction
You
and
have
provide
to
value.
talk them out of being a FSBO,
Yes,
basically.
by giving them value. And so it's the agents that don't put all these pieces together and take action that I worry about.
Yeah, well, again, and you have these technology companies, the iBuyer companies, the companies that are going to try to creep in and take get in front of the relationship you have with your client and then charge you a referral fee like good old-fashioned reload companies. All of that, guys, is going to, all those companies are spinning up aggressively this year because they know the market's here. And to Julie's point, if you do not have the skills as a listing agent, you might do okay, but you're not going to do anywhere as well as you could have had you actually taken the time to learn how to be a powerful listing agent. In the marketplace, amongst coaching companies, do you know anyone who's saying what we're telling you? Do you know anyone who's telling you guys, begging all of you to set aside the goofy, fluffy ideas and focus all your best energies every day on becoming a listing agent? Do you know of anyone else who's focusing all their pointy ends of their coaching programs at helping you guys become powerful listing agents? I don't either. That's the reason that we do what we do, because we have been there in your shoes, have had, at this point, I don't even know how many, hundreds of thousands of coaching calls. And if you add the coaching calls that our coaches have had, probably millions of coaching calls. So the moral of the story is we know what we're doing. We know how to help you guys make the most of this market. It's going to be up to you to take the right actions. One of the commitments I made, and I wrote it down, was I'm going to be more direct on this podcast this year. Not less direct, more direct. Because sometimes I am afraid, because you guys are sometimes listening to this show passively, that you're not hearing what we're saying. So if we say things that are maybe a little bit more salacious than normal, I bet you're going to start listening more and then start taking actions. And then you're going to become one of the thousands of people that say, hey, thanks, Tim and Julie.
Exactly.
Right?
On that note,
Get to work. We're going to pick up where we left off today, tomorrow, talking more of our predictions. You guys are going to like the next batch of predictions that we wrote down. Hopefully you're enjoying this series that we're doing. Oh, a quick reminder, go back and listen to the podcast we did last week on the PPP loans. The PPP loans are going to be becoming available again. You absolutely positively want to be first in line. Go back and listen to that podcast. It was only like 18-minute long show, so all of you have time. Again, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, every single podcasting platform. We're on all of them. We're even on Amazon's podcast widget. We're on iTunes, obviously, and our main website, timandjulieharris.com. Go back and listen to those past podcasts. If you're on iTunes, please subscribe. That really does help us out quite a bit. When you subscribe, iTunes says, hey, this podcast obviously has some value, and we're going to let other people know about it. So please do subscribe to the podcast, and while you're there on iTunes, please do consider giving us a 5-star review. If you've not picked up our book, Harris Rules, it remains a great, it's a bestseller on Amazon. It has well over 400 5-star reviews. It's available at Barnes & Noble and all the other leading booksellers as well. Amazon will get the book to you the quickest. Obviously, also available on Audible. In the meantime, if you need to get hold of us for anything, please feel free to text me at 512-758-0203. What is it?
6.
512-758-0206. Thanks. Have a great day.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, Thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.